Dave nervously stared at the woman sitting on a wooden chair. Summoning all his courage, he picked up the megaphone beside him. He was finally going to confess his true feelings to Grace. Grace, he stammered, his voice trembling but loud. Grace turned in his direction, her eyebrows knitting together in irritation. What is he up to now? Doesn't he ever get tired of following me around? Even here at the park, he's still bothering me, she muttered to herself in frustration. Grace, I just want to tell you, I really, really like you. No, I love you. Dave immediately felt the weight of all the eyes around him. He wanted the ground to swallow him whole as the stares of strangers burned into him. Grace, visibly annoyed, dropped the book she was holding and stormed toward Dave. What the hell do you think you're doing? Stop this nonsense. I will never, ever like someone like you, fat and ugly. I have no interest in men like you. But I love you. Grace snatched the megaphone from his hands, pointed it at him, and spoke firmly. I don't like you. I don't want you. Leave and never show yourself to me again. Dave's world crumbled in an instant. But what shattered him even more was the wave of laughter that erupted from the people around them. Humiliated, he turned and ran as the sky darkened, and heavy rain poured down, mirroring his sorrow. Why? Why? Dave cried out in anguish. Is it because I'm ugly? Because I'm fat? His fists clenched, striking the tree in front of him over and over until his knuckles bled. Slowly, he collapsed to the ground, sobbing uncontrollably. Grace Avila, she was the woman of his dreams. They had been high school classmates, and back then, he had always admired her from afar. But he never imagined that when they met again, she would treat him like a disease, as if his mere presence was unbearable. You'll regret this. I will change, not for you, but for myself. That was the only promise Dave made to himself that night. He could have given her genuine love, but in the end, everything he had hoped for had been a lie. Dave, what happened to you? Why are you soaking wet from the rain? Grandma, I just need to rest. I'm exhausted from work. You know I've been taking extra shifts at the convenience store nearby. My goodness, child, take care of yourself. You only have one body. Thank you for worrying about me, Grandma. Dave entered his room without another word, collapsing onto his bed. She was never the right woman for me. Sitting up, he turned toward the mirror and slowly removed his sunglasses. He took a long, hard look at himself, his thick beard, his chubby face, and his large frame. You broke my heart so badly, he whispered to himself. But this would be the last time he let himself feel this way. Dave had made up his mind. He would no longer let himself be affected by a woman who had disregarded him. Dave, long time no see, how have you been? Greeted his best friend. Jake Hernan had been his close friend for years. He had been encouraging Dave to join his gym health exercise for the longest time. Help me change myself, Jake. You were right. I should have done this a long time ago. No problem, Dave. I got you. All you need is the right training and discipline. Thanks. I don't want to stay like this anymore. I want to change everything about myself. I'm tired of people making fun of me. Jake patted him on the shoulder, pleased with his decision. I told you, you have great potential. You're actually handsome. They just can't see it under all that weight. Are you serious? When have I ever not been serious? Sweat dripped down Dave's body as he pushed himself through every workout. He did everything he could to shed the weight. Weeks turned into months, months turned into years. And then, Dave was no longer the same man. The once overweight, overlooked man had transformed. His body had become lean and muscular. His jawline was now sharper, his features more defined. More than just his appearance, his entire mindset had changed. He owed Jake a lot, but he had also found a new focus: his business. Almost 3 years ago, you walked into my gym for the first time, Jake said, shaking his head in amazement. Look at you now. I barely recognize you. Hopefully, you'll find the right woman who truly deserves you. I don't need a woman in my life, Dave scoffed. Flinging around is enough. No woman is ever serious. Most of them only care about looks. Nope. Not all of them are like that. Some women love deeply, even if it means enduring pain and struggles. Well, I'll never trust any woman again. The humiliation, the way they make you feel like a fool, never again. You have a point. Not everyone is lucky in love. Anyway, I have new trainees to handle at the gym. I'll catch you later. Dave nodded, but just as Jake left, his phone rang. It was Trixie Sales, the woman who played games with everything, but someone he could always count on, for the right price. Despite everything, Grace still lingered in his mind. He had recently learned that she was working in his company. "Trixie, what do you need?" "Don't we have plans tonight? I need some cash," she said bluntly. "Not tonight, but you'll make more money if you agree to what I want." "I like the sound of that. What do you need?" "Pretend to be my fiancé. Just follow my lead." "I'm down for whatever. Just make sure I get paid." "You start tomorrow at my company." "Are you sure about this?" "I think I already know why you're doing this, Mr. Dave Sebastian." "No more questions. Just do as I say. I'll call you when I get there." Still, despite his confidence, Dave couldn't deny the tension rising inside him at the thought of seeing Grace again. He knew what it felt like to be rejected by the person you loved, but now he was going to show her. He was no longer the same Dave she had humiliated. He started the engine of his blue Ford Raptor, gripping the steering wheel tightly. His presence, his looks, his confidence, these would be his weapons. He would make her regret it. If she thinks she can manipulate me, she's wrong. This meeting will be the biggest mistake of her life. With those words in mind, Dave stepped into the doors of his own company. "Have you prepared all the documents? You know we need them for the next project." "Yes, Mr. Sebastian." "Good. You may go now. But please, double-check the details. I don't want any mistakes." His secretary nodded and left the office. Dave adjusted his necktie and leaned back in his swivel chair, his gaze fixed on the glass window overlooking the cityscape. But his moment of silence was abruptly interrupted. Trixie entered the office, dressed in a dangerously short dress that left little to the imagination. Her flirtatious nature was evident in the way she walked, confident, sultry, and ready to play her part. "Hello, Mr. Sebastian. You know why I'm here, right?" she purred. "I'm just excited to officially meet everyone as your fiancé." "Shut up, Trixie." Dave's voice was cold and firm. "We have a contract. Just follow the plan." Trixie smirked and casually sat on his lap, twirling a strand of her hair. "Didn't you say today was my first day?" "Get out for now. We'll talk later." Trixie was about to stand up when the office door suddenly swung open. Dave's body tensed. There, standing in front of him, was the last person he expected to see. Grace. Her eyes widened in shock. He could see the disbelief written all over her face as she took in the sight before her. Trixie draped over his lap, arms around his neck. She wasn't the only one caught off guard. For the first time in 3 years, Dave found himself locking eyes with the woman who had crushed him. "Hey, do you not know how to knock?" Trixie snapped, still clinging to Dave. I'm sorry," Grace stammered. "Mr. Villanin asked me to bring these documents." "Just leave them on the desk and get out," Trixie demanded. Grace hurriedly placed the papers down, but she couldn't ignore the way Dave was staring at her. His piercing gaze sent shivers down her spine. "Wait." Dave's voice made her pause mid-step. "I don't want this happening again, Miss Avila." She swallowed hard. Her eyes flickered to where his hands rested firmly on Trixie's waist. A strange, unfamiliar sting settled in her chest. Had it really been 3 years? She had thought time would erase her past mistakes, but seeing Dave again, changed, powerful, and undeniably different, made her realize that some wounds never truly healed. As soon as she stepped out of his office, she clutched her chest, struggling to steady her breathing. "He's changed so much. He's not the same person I once knew." Her thoughts were interrupted when a colleague approached her. "Grace? You look pale. What's wrong?" "Why didn't you tell me that Mr. Sebastian is the owner of this company?" Her coworker frowned. "Huh? You didn't know? Mr. Fernandez sold the company to him. It was about to go bankrupt. If he hadn't bought it, we wouldn't even have jobs right now." "You could have at least told me." "Did you ever ask?" "Come on, it's our break time. We have a lot to do later." Grace forced a smile, but her heart was still pounding. Did she still have the right to work here? Would Dave let her? All she wanted was for him to forget the past, to move on without hatred between them. Later that day, she was tasked with making copies of important documents. As she stood by the photocopier, she heard a familiar voice. "Well, well, well, look who it is." Grace turned around. Trixie. "Out of all the people I could run into today, it just had to be you," Trixie sneered. "I apologize for earlier. Next time, knock before barging in. What if we were doing something private? You would have seen everything." "It won't happen again," Grace said quietly. Trixie was about to say more when a deep voice interrupted them. "Stop arguing over nonsense, babe." Dave. He had appeared behind Trixie, his hand possessively resting on her waist. "I was just reminding her, babe," Trixie said sweetly. "Didn't want her repeating the same mistake." "I'm sorry, Mr. Sebastian. I promise it won't happen again," Grace murmured. Dave didn't say a word. He simply walked past her as if she were invisible. The coldness in his eyes, the indifference, it hurt more than she expected. Grace took a shaky breath. It didn't matter. It shouldn't matter. But why did it feel like her heart was breaking? "I have to stop this. Whatever I'm feeling, I have no right to feel this way. This is my fault. I have to accept that I can never undo the past." She quickly finished her task and requested to leave early due to not feeling well. Her manager gave her a concerned look. "Take care of yourself, Miss Avila. You've been overworking yourself." "Thank you, Miss Reyes." She turned away, gripping her bag tightly. All she wanted was to forget. But could she? 3 days had passed since Grace returned to the company, yet the workload from Miss Reyes only seemed to worsen. "Here, bring this to Mr. Sebastian's office," Miss Reyes said, handing her a black folder. "Sorry, Miss Avila. I don't know why you, of all people, have to deliver this to him, but I don't have a choice." "It's okay, Miss Reyes. I'll take care of it." "Good. I have a lot more to do." Grace took a deep breath as she stepped into the elevator. Her heart pounded as she reached Mr. Sebastian's office. She knocked 3 times, waiting for a response. Silence. She knocked again. Still nothing. She even called his name, but there was no answer. Where could he be? "Might as well leave this on his desk," she muttered, pushing the door open slightly. And what she saw made her scream. Trixie let out a sly laugh. "Did you really intend to walk in on us?" Grace turned red, looking away immediately. I knocked several times. No one answered, so Trixie rolled her eyes. "Why don't you just fire this clumsy employee of yours?" she said, turning to Dave. "Do you want to lose your job?" Dave's deep, furious voice made Grace flinch. She shook her head. "Mr. Sebastian, I thought the office was empty. That's the only reason I walked in." Dave's dark eyes glinted with something unreadable. "Do you want me to humiliate you in front of the entire company, just like you humiliated me before?" He stepped toward her, his intense gaze locking onto hers. Grace instinctively took a step back, then another, until she felt the cold wall against her back. "Tell me, Miss Avila," Dave said softly, his voice laced with menace. "How does it feel?" Grace held her breath, refusing to answer. "You're not going to say anything?" His eyes bore into hers. "I have no right to answer your question, Mr. Sebastian," she whispered. "I'm just doing my job. And if you're trying to bring up the past, I don't care." Trixie, clearly enjoying the moment, wrapped her arms around Dave. "Babe, don't waste your time on her." She pulled him closer and pressed a kiss to his lips. Grace clenched her fists. She didn't want to admit it, but she was jealous. This time she turned to leave. "I should go. I don't want to disturb you any further." She was just about to reach for the door when Dave grabbed her wrist. "How many men have you made cry, Miss Avila?" Without thinking, Grace swung her hand. Smack! A sharp slap echoed in the room. Tears welled in her eyes. "Just because I rejected you before doesn't mean I went around counting the men in my life." A sharp slap echoed in the room. Tears welled in her eyes. "Just because I rejected you before doesn't mean I went around counting the men in my life." Dave scoffed. "Why are you crying? Does it hurt? That pain is nothing compared to what you did to me. You know nothing. Whatever your excuse is, I don't care anymore. Grace shoved him away and stormed out. 2 weeks later, every single day, Dave found new ways to hurt her. Every word, every action, reminding her of what she had done to him in the past. I can't take it anymore, Grace burst out. I'm resigning from that company. Her best friend, Belle, frowned. Grace, what happened? Mr. Sebastian is such an ass. He's doing it on purpose because of what I did to him before. Wait, hurt you? Who the hell is hurting you? Tell me, and I'll make sure they regret it. Dave's POV. Dave felt the pain in his chest. He saw it in Grace's eyes every time he hurt her. He wanted to stop, but his anger, his resentment, wouldn't let him. Trixie leaned against his desk, smiling smugly. Well, Mr. Sebastian, didn't I play my role as your fiancé perfectly? Maybe we should make it real. Stay away from me, Dave snapped. I already gave you half the payment. You can leave now. Trixie pouted. Fine. Call me when you need me again, babe. I said, get out. Now alone, Dave sat in his dimly lit house, pouring himself another glass of wine. His thoughts were consumed by Grace. Why can't I let go of the past? Why do I still want her? Why does it hurt even more now? Tears streamed down his face, and the only thing that numbed the pain was the bottle of wine in his hand. A loud voice from outside Grace's house woke her up. She quickly went downstairs and saw her mother peeking out the window. Sweetheart, what's all that noise outside? Someone keeps calling your name over and over. It's already midnight and it's embarrassing to the neighbors. Do you know that man? Mama, I'll handle it. Please go back to sleep. You better deal with that man outside, or just call the police to arrest that noisy guy. I'll take care of it, Mama. Please go to your room now. Grace let out a deep sigh as she carefully opened the door and walked towards the gate. Ma'am, there's a drunk man outside. Should I call the police? No need. I know him. I'll handle it. All right, ma'am. Thank you. As she opened the gate, she was met with the sight of Dave, completely drunk. He was leaning against the front door of his car, holding a bottle of liquor. What are you doing here, huh? Go home. Don't you realize it's the middle of the night? I don't care about them. Please, Dave, just go home. I don't want any trouble. Why don't you call your fiancé instead? A smirk formed on Dave's lips. Fiancé? You mean Trixie? I don't care about her. Isn't it enough that I pushed you away before? Why can't you just forget about me? Because you're the one who pushed me to become like this. Do I still look ugly in your eyes? Look at me. I changed everything about myself. I'm happy for you if that's what you did. Grace was about to turn away when Dave suddenly pulled her into an embrace. Let me go. Did you marry that man? What are you talking about? Do you really think I'm stupid? Dave, we were never a couple. The rain poured down heavily as Dave looked into her eyes. But I know you loved me too. You're just hurting yourself. Go back to your fiancé. Fine, but on one condition. You leave my company and never show yourself to me again. Tears streamed down Grace's face as she struggled to hold them back, but she couldn't. Dave, I endured 3 years without seeing you, but I couldn't take it anymore. I found a way to be near you, even though I knew you hated me. I tried to get into your company, but I got caught. I didn't know you had someone else. You've changed so much. Back then, I didn't know what to do when they forced me to marry a man I didn't love. I ran away, hoping I could reach you, find you, and apologize. But you left the country. When I came back to this house, my family lost their trust in me because I didn't give them what they wanted. But I stood on my own. I'm sorry, Dave. Dave held Grace tightly in his arms and kissed her passionately. Trixie is not my fiancé. I just paid her to pretend and make you jealous. But in the end, I couldn't bear to see you in pain. I love you, Grace, and I promise that no one will ever separate us again. 6 months later, they finally got married, and Grace was now pregnant with their first child. The weather is beautiful. Why don't we go to the beach? Again? Didn't we just come from there this morning? Come on! I just want to see the sunset. Besides, your grandmother said fresh air is good for pregnant women. And your mom also said you should stop being stubborn with me. Grace pouted and crossed her arms. Fine, we'll go, but only for 2 hours. The air is getting colder, and I don't want anything bad to happen to our baby. You're so overprotective, you're annoying. They sat together on a wooden bench near the resort owned by Dave, watching the breathtaking sunset over the ocean. Thank you for listening to our TéAmor love audio stories. I hope you enjoyed the love story of Dave and Grace. Don't forget to subscribe for more heartwarming stories. Until next time.